right. Well, hello, you beautiful people. How you doing? Happy Monday to you. Happy Moon Day. Happy motivation. Hashtag motivation Monday. Hashtag Magoo. Hashtag Magoo Mondays. I think that's how we should be looking forward to. And now that we're in the campaign season and Trump thinks he's running for real, which he isn't. We'll get to that later. And also, this afternoon, just a heads up, I will be covering his CPAC speech, which I have not watched, and I've seen one sliver of one clip, and I was like, "Oh, that's from the speech." I'm not. So we are going to watch it fresh together later on today. It is intolerably long and awful. So it's a Monday, so buckle in. There's going to be a lot to it. I have no doubt the entire thing will be elongated by laughing fits. I just, I can tell from the pictures of the thing that he is a sweaty, scary mess through the whole thing. Yes. And by the way, Sylvia just brought up rip to Gary Rossington, the last surviving original member of Leonard Skinner has passed. And I mean, honestly, if your band doesn't actually know Freebird at this point, and you can't just whip it out whenever somebody yells it, I don't know what's wrong with you. I recommend it. I don't care what style of music you play. Maybe it'd be weird for a jazz trio, but for every rock band that exists, no matter what era you come out of, you can unironically and wonderfully play a song that everybody will surprisingly fall right into, even if they only know it from Forrest Gump. And yes, unlike Wang Dang Sweet Poontang, which is a different song. Yeah, when in doubt, I whip it out. I got me a rock and roll band. It's a free for all. Sir, this is a polka hal. I don't care. There should be able to like the look, if John Candy and Eugene Levy could do it on accordions, so can you. Also, Rawhide. That's only if you're misbooked. But yeah. If I leave here tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, come on. As a matter of fact, I might, because of this, I might have to insist, because it's been done, since everybody does it. That's all right. So the remakes show is coming up for the Ultimate Jam Night week from Tuesday, not tomorrow, not tomorrow, but the next one, and the 14th. And I think we have to do Freebird to end the show. Not only because yes, it's not technically one of those remakes, but it's one of those that every band does or gets called on to do. So I think we have to do it. Out of tribute to those guys, I think it's only right. Yeah? I mean, come on. Come on. All right. Let me announce right out of the gate, too. Couple of cool things. Besides my cute little graphic that you may have seen at the beginning of the show, I've been tinkering behind the scenes, and we're getting up to a ground speed is rising. We may approach liftoff at some point, but today Kimberly Johnson is going to be joining us at author Kimberly on Twitter. If you follow her, and we'll be discussing, I have no doubt, a myriad of topics. Wednesday, Philip Ittner. Friday, Malcolm Nance. I got guests all week for the morning show. How about them apples? Huh? For a full hour. So that's that. I'm just saying, next week's going to be hard to it's going to be hard to beat it, but I'm going to try. Yeah. Trump is going to be president. Ain't nothing you could, yeah. Ryan, Trump is not going to be president. But please continue to scream that everywhere you can. Please tell everyone you know that Trump is going to be president again. Get at it. Knock yourself out. That's adorable. We have Facebook is the place to go for dead enders. Bob Seska, yes, Bob will be on, but I have to like his show is on, like he's on a show sometimes similar to the same hour that I have, I think on Mondays. So I'm trying to get him on one of the other days, and Wednesday's spoken for. So it's either Monday or Friday, or dear God, it might be time for a Hal Sparks special report where I do a Tuesday or Thursday morning show just for the shit of it, so people can have that. Please fix your tweet. No image preview today. Oh no, it's weird. Oh, it's because I added a PNG file. I'm not quite sure how. I'll figure it out. Anyways, so there you go. When am I having my debates with Dinesh D'Souza and Lindell? By the way, let's bring in the chat room. Hi, chat room. Everyone say Bob Seska so he sees. I've seen Bob Seska's been on before, and he will be again. I insist. I love Bob. He's great. Sorry, Hal, it's author Kimberly. You have the wrong Twitter handle in your life. Okay, cool. I do. Did I? I thought I'd done it correctly, but I'll switch it. I will fix it up. Hold on. Let's fix that. I can fix it that quickly. Let's see. Let's go into here. Can I fix this? Where are we? Here we go. This one's, here we go. Edit. Here we go. Yeah, it says author Kimberly in my setup. Oh, I see. Ley. Beg your pardon. Yes, there it is. Is that what the part we were talking about? Hold on. Whoops. Do I have to do these individually? You ratty person. Okay, hold on one second. I put a and yeah, the E, is that what I missed? Hold on. I'm just checking, scrolling for it. Yes. Yes. She has another E in her name. Yes, you're correct. Thank you for telling me that, guys. Save, and then I got to go to the edit, and I'll have to do all of them individually because that's because they call me the working man, and that's what I am. All right, and then that one, and then we'll fix it here. There we go. Save, and then edit, and then the I have to do it over, and then and then when I have to do it for Twitter or for Twitch, I have to do it on the other thing. Okay, save that. An error happened. Please try again later. Grumble. See, this is what happens when I try to be prepared and get ahead of things. I should just, yeah. You need a shout out preset on Twitch. I don't even know what that is. Hold on. Maybe I can do it this way. I think I can. I think so. Update. Done. Maybe that fixed it everywhere. That's fabulous. That would be fabulous. Hopefully it did. I hope so. Anyways, all right, we're back to it. I apologize about the misspelling. I will solve that in a bit, and we're back with the chat. Okay, so that's updated in there. It is good. Okay, so close that. All right, I think it did, and we'll see. Hopefully fix that. Win the 2023 erection and be Republican erection. Trump hasn't had a functioning erection without medication for decades. Rumors out about whether he ever did. 48.3 thousand subscribers. Come on, we can get up to 50K. We can do that. And yes, by the way, I did go see Winger and Lita Ford here in Vegas this weekend. It was fantastic. I highly recommend it if they come to your town, especially in that pairing. And I will say that Lita Ford previously has been someone sort of like late stage David Lee Roth, where you're like, please do good, please do good, please do good, because I know you got it in you, but that may not be, you might not be, please do good, where you're nervous that they'll be able to pull it off. And yeah, I know, I'm just messing with them. I don't care. But as far as the troll goes, but I mean, we've all seen artists like that. Like, have you ever seen anybody gone to see an artist that you really like, or somebody from your childhood, and you're like, please don't suck, please don't suck, please don't suck. Like, I've seen Ace Frehley multiple times, and I have to say, like, the last three times I've seen him, great show. I mean, he's definitely Trumpy, which is weird. um, and he does kind of random whatever about the government, and you're like, come on, dude, get like, you ain't the guy. Um, but the Red Hot Chili Peppers suck live. That's a shame because I love Flea. I've never been a real fan overall, but anyways, late stage David Lee Roth. Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Like, the last concert I saw before lockdown was Kiss with David Lee Roth opening, and I was excited to see the Kiss show. Went with some friends. We always go. I've seen every tour since 1980. Not well, technically, I guess since 1982. Because I think I missed one in between my first concert ever and the next one. But anyways, like, I was excited. I wasn't worried. The Kiss show is always, it's a pro endeavor. It's a big deal, and it's always good. David, like, there was a period where you're like, ugh, and he was just barking lyrics and blowing stuff off, and that was the thing. And the one thing I have, and this is why I have a real hard time going to see the Cult anymore, even though I love the albums. Big Cult fan, can't do Ian Astbury mocking his own hit songs. Either don't do them or do them right. If you want to modify them, I guess I won't like it that much. If you take your hits and you turn them into an old blues song, whatever. But at least do them if you're going to do them. If you're going to walk up to the bell, ring the bell. But he had this tendency to just kind of like Elvis out Firewoman, just to be a dick because he didn't want to do it, just to fuck with the rest of the band, and that's a no for me. And I feel bad for everybody else who wants to play in the band, who's really doing their best. That like the interpersonal relationship shit that nobody needs to see during a concert. Anyway, so the same thing was true with David for a little while. Like, he was just kind of forgetting lyrics or scatting his way through it, and he has a history of that, and that's fine. And I make fun of it occasionally in Nerd Halen. But this particular time, he just nailed it. He brought everything. It was like, and I'm pretty sure that Gene and Paul sat him down and said, "Look, if you're gonna tour with us, you can't do that shit. You got to bring your A game, or you can't tour. We can't have the story about our concert be that you were a fucking train wreck." And whether it was him or whether it was them, there you go. Nightwish with Floor Jansen. I don't know, Michael. I have looked into it thanks to you. I've looked into Nightwish. I don't know when they're going to play, but I'll tell you this: my bass player in Nerd Halen is Swedish, and we've had lovely discussions about Nightwish. So there you go. Yeah, ELO early 70s. Oh my God. Bill Maher had Russell Brand spewing his trash. Yes, I know, Robin. I think I'm going to have to cover that in its own, like, standalone, because that little run isn't that long, but it's effectively a Gish Gallop. And that's his, there are certain people, and I probably, I mean, I know I fall into this myself, is that I'm involved in rhetorical endeavors most of my week. While I do genuinely, and you guys know this, I would, I try to interact with you guys as much as I can while still putting on a show for everybody who's watching, so that it's hard sometimes because, like, when I don't have the chat up like this and you can't see what I'm relating to, if I just kind of pull something out of the air, it's a little brain farty to people who are watching later or don't know or don't see the chat. So I'm always aware of that. But the vast majority of what I'm doing is a rhetorical act. I'm expressing, what we all feel together, I think, largely, and my own opinions and comedy jokes over top of these, during these reactions to these long form videos that these folks put out. And in doing so, I know I can build a habit where I'm used to talking with no response. And there's nothing wrong with it. You just have to be aware of it. You've got to, when you do anything like this gig, and it's the same thing with stand up to some degree, but certainly less so than, being I guess maybe having guests would be an automatic help. But in general, if you're involved in this rhetorical endeavor, which, like, besides his podcast, Russell's all of his videos, all of his main focus are rhetorical, that you just get used to stampeding language, especially, I would suppose, in his case, when he's like, you can tell the more full of shit he is about something, the faster he talks. It's just one of those things I've noticed. Hal and Oates. You think I should do that? Oh, here she comes. I need to do a White Soul tour. That's not a bad idea. Hal and Oates is pretty. I know that was a mistype, but I mean, I think I've got another cover band right there. I mean, come on, Hal and Oates. It could happen. I'm not against it. I'd have to dye my hair blonde, but that's all right. Paul Rogers does indeed still sound great. Whatever you're doing, Hal, you're doing it right. Thank you. Thanks very much. I try. Just trying to be a good dude overall. Now, if I may, Alan Goats. Right. ELO to ELP. Yeah, you're in the Prague big production world. Where do we get tickets? Yeah, seriously. And the funny thing is I would just have like a giant mustache on a stand, and that would be Oates. Or just a bucket of oats with a mustache on it. That's reinterpreting the songs. I like it. So, yeah. Well, Dark Hal. Yeah, Dark Hall. Yeah, that'll work. Holland coats. Sal has enough jackets. I don't have enough jackets. I have to say, I've been feverishly buying cheap jackets to wear on the air because, thank God, the great thing about wardrobe versus real clothing is is that they don't have to be worth a shit. Most of your, like, and it's kind of sad though. If you go buy, those auctions they have where you can buy movie memorabilia and they have the outfits that somebody wore, like the fucking Blade Runner coat or something like that. It's really awesome. In movies, they'll have like these really high level tailors and seamstresses and like clothing designers recreating the clothing of a period or creating futuristic clothing off of stuff, and it's amazing. Those clothes, if you get them, if you buy them, if you choose to, you could wear them kind of forever. They will last because they are genuine clothing. They are built for months and months of use, and they are built to be put through the ringer multiple times. And sometimes they'll have multiple versions. They'll have three of the same coat. If you ever seen a movie like Memento or something, holy shit! Like, they have the outfits. They have to have racks of the same shirt with the same stains on it, right? Because you're shooting every day for weeks, and so you can't wash them, and you don't want to stank up the joint, especially if it's a very physical movie. So they'll have lots of them, and when they sell them afterwards, they're for real. They've all been remade or made, from that. Television shows, not so much. Television shows, a lot of the times, especially sitcoms and other shows, they're just running down to H&M or like some knockoff. Like, they'll go down in LA to 11th Street. There's a market down there. It's great shopping. If you're ever in Los Angeles, like 11th Street and what the fuck is the cross street on it? Anyways, you're just looking for like the 11th Street clothing market downtown. And because the clothing district, yeah, is all down there, and it's just fucking racks and racks and racks of shit. Some of it's good, a lot of it's crap, and a lot of it is like like knockoff Chinese, vinyl posing as leather, right? That kind of stuff. There's tons of it. Really cheap fabrics and that kind of stuff. It won't last forever, but style wise, it'll last about as long as the clothing trend it's assigned to. Yeah. And then there are stores, yes, with designer stuff around there. Or if you need a quinceanera dress, that's the place to go, fellas. Um, yeah, the alley. Yeah, but there's another name for it. It's like I want to say San Angelino, but that's not it. It's anyway. So it's fantastic. And there's one in New York. There's kind of one in Chicago, but not quite because it's too cold there most of the year. But that's where they go in LA. That's where your wardrobe department. That's where they head first. They pick stuff out of there. Occasionally, they will find stuff like if you get like on TalkSoup, my publicist reached out to my own personal one, not at E, but my personal publicist reached out to Banana Republic, and they would give me suits to wear to events, and it was great. It was I still have like 4 or 5 of them, and they still fit. It's wonderful. Those kind of that's nice when that happens. Doesn't happen all the time, and when it's a regular show like a sitcom especially, stuff will look great on camera and be absolute garbage like in real life. It won't last but the episode, right? And like it's just when those things break down, like when the vinyl breaks down, starts flaking and all that shit. Okay, it's that kind of stuff. And so if you buy something on one of those auctions from a film, it's going to last you. If you buy it from a TV show, it's going to fall apart most of the time. Now, there are rare exceptions. Shows like The Walking Dead or those kind of things, they are like an ongoing film. They're wearing the same shirt for years, and so they've got multiple versions of that. Yeah. Um, White type on blue background. Yeah, it's not bad, Karma. I mean, you have a choice, and this is the choice that I made. It matches my whole thing, sort of. Yeah, we got 1,100 people in the chat, and at the top of the hour, in the next hour, Kimberly Johnson is going to be joining us. I believe I fixed the title. I hope so. I will fix the tweet as well while we're here. Hold on one second, since once we get into our trended jizz. Sorry, hold on one second. Grab this. I apologize to her for not putting that extra E in there. That was my mistake. So hold on one second. Boink. Let me grab let's see. All of this. Why is this in Twitter? Oh, because it's in Twitter broadcasts now. That's super weird. Whoops. It's just fun isolating text on the fly. Control copy, and then we'll do a whole new one, and then we'll control V. There we go, and then whoops, Kimberly Johnson. There we go, and then there we go. That's why I did it. Okay, cool. And then we'll add this, and we'll go to where would this be? What would that be? I think it's in here. Yeah. Open. There we go. Then I'll go to make sure I'm putting a new one up so it's fixed for you guys. Good. The excellent tweet. There you go. Done. Excellent. Okay, fixed. Thank you. And thanks for the heads up, guys. I totally aped that. My bad. But I'm also going to, just in case, I'm going to open our lovely, get out of here. There it is. Close that. Open this. I just want to make sure that the software is up for whenever she wants to dive in here, so it won't be too much of a hassle once we get closer. And then we're going to look at trends, which are a good time. This is the perils of live streaming. It's fun. I certainly do, if I may, envy those that have someone there flipping the switches in the background. But in the meantime, if I may, um, it's all good in the hood. Oh, that's what I need to do. I need to turn on my camera so she can see me when she shows up. And that's there. Yep. By the end of this, I'm going to be APIing the crap out of Streamlabs and building my own buttons for this thing. Yeah, it's the garment district downtown that we were talking about earlier. Somebody, yes, Mr. Producer, that's right. I'm the guy on the other side of Mark Levin. Mr. Producer, Mr. Producer, hit it. It's disgusting, and these people and these Marxists are destroying the whole world, and I don't know why we all sound ever so slightly like Ross Perot. What you have to understand that there are no men on the right, on the left rather. The right is where all the manhood is, and that's how you can tell, because I'm portly and sedentary, and I have a very narrow and relatively nerdy, high-pitched voice. And some would say I'm overcompensating, but Mr. Producer, roll the clip and stop it. Stop. I can't let them finish that thought. So I want to be a producer. I want to be a producer. Francie, that's when we elevate up to the point where I actually have an off-site studio. Yeah, that's going to be a thing, because my girlfriend won't even let me walk in the house with shoes on, much less a stampede of people twice a day. Yes, because Ross Perot. Well, I will say this. A lot of people will say that Ross Perot is one of the reasons why they sound like this. Now, where Ross Perot got his voice from was from what's his name? The guy from Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill. If you listen to Napoleon Hill, you will all of a sudden understand an entire generation of very motivated men. They all sound exactly like this. And at some point, it will be my goal in life, if I may, sir, to play in a movie, a biopic, as they are referred to in the common parlance of our time, the character of Napoleon Hill. Now, as you know, my child was born without any sign of ears, and through faith and focus and a persistent effort, we were able to reach to a point where he was able to have full restoration of his hearing. That's a true quote from from his audio, from the old. I think there's an audio recording of it, but also it's mostly like him lecturing about the book. Yep. Why is he talking like that's not what Casey Kasem was lower. Now at this point, yeah, there is some tendency towards it, but number one with a rocket. Here's what was that old one? Where like somebody was spoofing him ages ago, and they were like, I mean, it might have been. Oh, I think it was Richard Jenny, bless his heart, fucking Richard Jenny, who was so awesome. Twitter's down. That's hilarious. Well, it couldn't have happened to a nicer service. Yeah, he'd do these long distance things, and he did. It was, I think Richard Jenny's bit was it lost. This one goes out to my pops, who was always my hero, who lost both his legs in Vietnam, and then still managed to leave the family. And marry a much younger woman and move far away, and we haven't heard from him. So here's Daddy, don't you walk so fast. Twitter is down. We've got Twitter down. I gotta say my favorite person is Wolfman Jack, baby. If I ever opened up a show band, it would be Wolfman Jack. We're gonna get some rock and roll going on here. And by the way, I have been under the impression for years that Cat Williams is doing Wolfman Jack, but that's another story for another time. Yes, that's true. Casey Kasem was the voice. Not only Was he the voice of Shaggy on Scooby Doo? Hey, Scoob! But he also got a friend of mine thrown in jail, and my friend deserved it. It was more of a friend at the time, but we've gotten closer over the years. He's yeah. Cat Williams is a douche. Isn't he like this big? I will say, for uh, as much as I've seen of Cat, I will say his politics are are locked in. They're solid. I'm drinking a G Fuel. It's just what was upstairs. I'm sipping it more for my throat. I never finish these things. It's hilarious. I don't know. I don't know that he's a douche. That's never been my experience. But there you go. Nice earrings. Thanks. Thanks. I've been wearing them for ages. They're actually um, they're from a company that that works that has these kind of like it's like a nanotech that purifies your blood. Like using magnets and all that stuff. That was the idea, that as your blood passes through your veins, it goes past this magnet, and it has an effect on like kind of plumping your blood vessels. And so they make jewelry that does that. The this bracelet that I wear, it's a shoesy. I got these and I wore them as Mr. Davenport on the show, because if you watch Lab Rats, you'll see that I got these bracelets, and I wear them upside down, because the idea was, it's at one point we never got around to it. It's one of those things we're saving for the movie, that this would be a kind of like Cowboys and Aliens. It would have a targeting matrix on the top of it. So at one point this becomes a nano sleeve that just click over his arm, and the targeting is on these two things. So I wanted him always wearing it till we got to the point where it happens, and you're like, oh my god, that thing he's been wearing the whole time is a thing. Like, you know what I mean? Because I love that kind of stuff in a movie. You know what I mean? Where totally just either a piece of jewelry or something that the person always wears, and then it, like, months if not years later in the show, turns into something, especially in a sci-fi um, movie. Now, there's always those TV show. There's always an element where they're like, "Well, why didn't he use it sooner?" Right? That's what you always. That's always the fight, and why it always gets downplayed. But it's because they didn't want anybody, the bad guys, to know or whatever. So you do everything until the failsafe, right? It's like Death Blossom in the last Starfighter. Yeah, Future Fridays tech. That'll be on Friday morning. And then Malcolm Nance in hour 2 on Friday, Philip Bittner in hour 2 on Wednesday, and Kimberly Johnson with with an extra E, will be joining us in just a few minutes. And we haven't even gotten to the trends today. Good heavens. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Let me drag this over so it can, you guys say, oh, good. Did Twitter, because Twitter's supposedly down, did Twitter just die? Lock themselves out of their own API? That's funny. Is that what everybody thinks? Yeah, Twitter images were busted. That's hilarious. Only Twitter Blue subscribers can visibly support Ukraine. It'll just take a few minutes to remove it. Okay. That's so weird. Like, yeah, so this is what's yeah, it's I think it depends on what server people are using. Yeah. That's how, like, some will get through and some don't. That's how that happens sometimes, is because you don't use Twitter in general. You use one of Twitter's many, entry ramps that exist. And so sometimes, it'll get screwed up in a particular area, or the sort of back and forth between Twitter headquarters or wherever their primary is. Hold on. Yeah, there's just Twitter's own products are breaking down because it ended the free API. Oh, I see. That's what it was. Oh, yeah. Twitter getting this error message about my current API plan not including access, and then you can't see it. So, oh, by the way, okay, here that explains it. Okay, so, um, Matt Binder. I don't know who Matt Binder is, but I'm glad if you're watching, Matt. This is what's going on. Um, more than likely, they switched off the free API and it killed everybody's ability to post normal shit, not just live stream to it like I do, for example. Um, which is stupid anyways, until they make it a paying video site and blah blah blah. He's going to try and turn it into Rumble, and Rumble's going to get mad. It's going to be hilarious. It's not going to overtake YouTube or Twitch. It's going to be a third tier, and it's just going to be a fight amongst the third tier because nobody watches long form video using Twitter. It's just fucking odd because it goes against the entire purpose of Twitter. But more than likely what happened was as soon as that happened, they were like, kill imaging because so people wouldn't see this shit. It won't work for long. Yeah, so they're just trying to kill. Yeah, they're. I don't think it was a fail. I think they failed by shutting that off, and they realized it, and people were like, "Holy shit! I keep getting this image that they broke the API." And he's like, "Cut the image feeds. External links are broken. Images won't load. Good times." Well, I guess this is Twitter. It was nice to know you because all the well, there's some in there. This some of these are showing up. I guess are back on board or they're older. Let's see if they. Let's see. Yep. Look at that. Your current API, if you click on this, it says your current API does not include access to this endpoint. Please see developertwitter.com API code for that's fucking sad, man. That's hilarious. What a dickhead. Ugh, that's so funny. Yeah. So basically the main use of Twitter, the purpose of it, which is largely a news aggregate and opinion site, is deed. So good. It's just some things are just so good. Sometimes they're just so good. When oh, it's so fun. The devs are busy deprogramming the site. Remember when Twitter was fun? I do. I remember like when we used to do like hashtag games. Like that was the the heyday of Twitter was when they would go, fucking, add soup to a movie title and it would just go, and I would get I would dive into those things sometimes and it was a mission. Right? I was like, all right, God damn it, this is mine. I'm owning this. I'm getting, And then they turned that into Midnight. Midnight was basically a ripoff of Twitter hashtags. That's all it was. Hashtag, yeah, hashtag when Twitter was fun. That'd be, yeah, should be it, Betsy. Elon is upgrading to Fortran totally. He's gonna enter it in with punch cards. Yeah, 2005, 2009. I agree. You know what? You know what? But yeah, you know what fucked it up? You know what really fucked up Twitter? You know what it really was? The mainstream media. That's right. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a case that once CNN started quoting Twitter users based just on their fucking existence on Twitter, if they were like Patriot John 2749952B1 America First MAGA, if they would just read off one of those and they'd go, oh, let's see what's happening on Twitter. People are saying in the Twitter conversation about this, and they would elevate anonymous accounts to national news level. And then it was just like ringing the fucking dinner bell for trolls all over the world. They were, oh, thanks so much. Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. That's amazing. Thank you for the super chat. I do my best. Let me tell you something. You guys know that I used to work around Marianne Williamson back in the day, before she wrote her books, before she was on Oprah's book club, before her, first 14, $12 million deal, whatever it was. And uh, I have to say, like, there were seeds of what you're seeing now in that. That's for another time. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate it. Um, Screw Twitter. I've been banned for 3 years for bad mouthing Trump clan. Oh, well, Brian, you're certainly, we're glad to have you here. There you go. Isn't she insane? No, no, no. She's an egoist. She's like the irony that the Course in Miracles is all about, not the that there's good and evil in the world, but that there's love and fear, that there's love and ego. And ego basically is a placeholder for the devil in 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 the sort of message of A Course in Miracles. And there's a lot to be garnered from that. From a psychological standpoint, and it reeks, by the way, of critical theory. If looking back, I wasn't aware of it at the time, but it makes total sense because the idea is tear down the existence aspects of everything you see. And there's one exercise in A Course in Miracles, called "There is nothing to fear." And all day long, every day, or all day long, because it's 365 lessons for the year. There's a book, and then a manual for teachers, and then there's the daily lessons of A Course in Miracles. And the overall message of it is fantastic. Like, believe me, there's a lot of good in it. She was just the only person teaching from A Course in Miracles. That's how she made her bones. She did this like little circle gathering on A Course in Miracles at this New Age bookstore, and then she built on that, and then it turned into effectively a borderline cult. And but the genesis of it was relatively innocent and good natured. After, yeah, I did too, Eileen. I've done A Course in Miracles twice, all the way through. Did the exercise on it, and there's a lot of good that came from it. But a lot of it is tearing down your expectations. So, and quite frankly, there's a lot more similarities in its linguistic works to like Sun Tzu's The Art of War and books like that, which clearly Helen, what's her name? Shipley. I'm blessed in her name. Helen, the woman who wrote it, um, clearly she was in a philosophy religion class, and she was clearly adopting these thoughts into it. But there's an exercise in there. There's nothing to fear. And so the whole thing is walk through your day, and everything you encounter that you feel any kind of like nervous aversion to, any anxiety about, you just repeat there is nothing to fear over and over again. Like, just you to everything. You like, there is nothing to fear. There is nothing. And it can be as simple as like these little things you do with like why won't my shoes tie? There's nothing to fear. Like, everything. Because the idea is that most people, it's not Schlaply, it is, but it's like that. Yeah. Most people, your anxiety builds on a stack of small anxieties. Big things definitely affect you, and they can be quote unquote triggering, but they only trigger you if you have sort of a toxic buildup of minor anxieties all the time. And so the exercise from that, the value of, no, this isn't real, is a different exercise. There is nothing to fear there are several of these. They're very similar, but the point is also E. coli can be feared. Yes, but if you're afraid of every sandwich you eat because you're like, oh my God, E. coli, you're going to be paralyzed and sick all the time anyways. It wasn't Phyllis Schlafly. Anyways, so the idea is, yes, there is nothing to fear. So the idea is that anytime you encounter something that makes you feel kind of agitated or anxious or whatever, you just respond to it in your head. There is nothing to fear. And and I will tell you, besides, we're not talking about it doesn't cause you to walk blindly into traffic. I can walk across the street without in high speed traffic. There's nothing to fear. Like, it's not stupid. The idea is that you're just checking your own response, so you're not manipulated by minor anxieties that you did not actively take on, that you did not choose to have in your life. Okay. It's not psychobabble. There are similar practices in psychology. Psychiatrists will often prescribe a similar, activity remind yourself, or you'll people will journal about things they're afraid of. Go, okay, right. I want you to write what you're afraid of, and I want you to write 3 reasons why you're not it's not something you should be afraid of. That it's not uncommon. It works very well. There is nothing to fear. That's the part of it. The other part of it is there, which is much more in line with critical theory, which brought us critical race theory and critical legal theory and all that shit. Is the idea that nothing is what it seems. So you spend all day, every day, like, well, for that whole day, but in general, critical theory is based on this idea that nothing you see is what you see. Like, and the exercise in that is, this mug is not a mug. These scissors are not a scissors. This Wi-Fi spoofing device that takes control of people's Wi-Fi without their knowledge is not a Wi-Fi spoofing device that takes control of people's Wi-Fi without their knowledge. Um, this this bullshit button is not a. Well, it might actually be. And in that case, there might actually be this cable is not a cable. These earphones are not earphones. And the idea is that we attach to it detaches you from your attachments to material reality. Right. And which for some people, again, yes, it's atoms, it's all part of it together. And the idea is that everything is part of the same, universal goop. And that's cool. And from a spiritual standpoint, yes, it's a steak sandwich. I'll have a steak sandwich and a steak sandwich, please. Facebook is real. No, it is not. It's an illusion. It's an illusion. I have a file full of good advice from you that I've written down. Aw, thanks, Katie. Yeah, it's like those parts of it are useful, especially if you deal with anxiety, especially if you're wound up and bound up by fears around this kind of stuff. And so the book itself, which Marianne Williamson did not write, she wrote what is effectively an idiot's guide, like the Course in Miracles for Dummies. That's what Return to Love is. It is a mixture of her lectures and elements of A Course in Miracles. And she would always cite A Course in Miracles, or at least she did up to a certain point. And then once she stopped, and she starts quoting herself, and that's always the problem. That's when you know that people have jumped the Kool-Aid shark in regards to that. Feel the fear, do it anyway. It's another version of that. It's like, recognize you're afraid of it, but understand that there's nothing really to be afraid of. Feel the fear and do it anyway is a similar version of that, right? So, you feel failure, fear of failure. I clearly don't, because I do it all the time and I'm still here. Your anxiety does not define you. You just define your anxiety. That is true. You create it. You feed that. It's that. I think I've told you this before, but when I was a kid, I don't know where I was first introduced to this idea, or if it just kind of popped into my head, because I had a cousin who did himself in when I was very young. And I remember, while everyone was sad about it, and this was when I was a kid. So you have to understand, take this into consideration of a 8-year-old. As an 8-year-old, I was angry with him for doing this to everyone else, and not so much that he had done this to his family or whatever, because obviously there were issues and all this other stuff, but that he did it in a park near a bus stop where kids come home from school, because he wanted somebody to find him. It was just bad. And I'm like, those kids, they don't deserve that. Do it at home in the basement. If you're mad at your parents and you're showing them that you don't feel loved and blah, blah, blah. Hal calls Marianne Williamson the Trump of the left. He's brilliant, except for the fact that he's an anti-progressive. And no, I did not say she's the Trump of the left. Please quote where I said she's the Trump of the left. But anyways, I had this issue with this, and I kept trying to figure out, like, this kid had it so good. And this is, again, you got to understand, this is from 8-year-old me talking about this, thinking about it in my head. They had a pool table in their house. We had a hole in the floor where you could see dirt under the house. Like, so on the sort of the breadth of of familial wealth, we were on the absolute odd ends of the spectrum. Okay. And uh I remember going, why couldn't he focus on all the things that were good in his life? Why? And you had a Florida. Why couldn't he recognize? And the funny thing is I realized that we used to visit their family in town, go to their house, and it was very nice. But they never visited ours. That family. Oh, hey, Kimberly's joining us. Hold on, she's jumping in there 1 second. I'm gonna put my headphones in so I can hear her, and we don't have feedback and all those fun things. And then I'm gonna bring her in because she's here and she's with us. And and but I will say this, that I developed this philosophy that there's like a table of people in your head, your personalities, that the elements of your personality all have a seat at the table. Way this is well before Herman's head. And I at 8 years old, I was just like, people who are violent just tend to feed the violent person at the table more. Because these things, these parts of our personality feed on whatever we take in, whatever we validate through our own behavior, our own beliefs, and in doing that, they get bigger than everybody else. And when it comes time to make a decision, they muscle everyone else out. If that makes sense. That was just the sort of picture I had in my head as an 8-year-old of everybody has the do yourself in, do big do every bad behavior that will ruin your life, your relationships, whatever. The violent actor in your head, the person who would act out in a violent way to solve them. But the difference is that some people just feed those beings in their head more than other people. And some people feed the peace, fun, and happy and music person. Maybe that's the most important thing in your life. And you're like, I love music. So they're just feeding the music people at the table to where the rest of them become kind of almost anemic. And that I'm sure that imbalance can happen both ways. But I've always felt like that whoever you feed the most will kind of win the day when it comes time to make a big life decision. And in the case of like Marianne Williamson, when I first met her and I was going to her lectures, and I was, I met some beautiful people there. I sat at, bedsides of people who were dying of AIDS with her and with people from her lectures. When Dan, the guy who ran her lectures regularly, died of AIDS, we were all just devastated. He was such a sweet and wonderful human being. Um, Regularly, people like Dom DeLuise would come to the lectures regularly. Bobby Rock, who drums for Lita Ford, saw him this weekend and is amazing. Like I posted the video of him playing drums. Bobby Rock's pregnant wife was murdered at an ATM in Sherman Oaks when she was 4 months pregnant with their baby. And so far as I know, I don't know that he has any children because that was it. This was years ago. This was the mid 90s, I believe, if I'm getting the timing on right. But he was, part of his healing and kind of coming back to life was through going to her lectures and that kind of stuff. And he was just, he is a beautiful person and a super talented drummer and a lovely being. So I met a lot of people, and there were a lot of human beings that interacted with her, during that time, that were very valuable. There was a certain point where I saw, as someone close to her, the constant, the ego person at the table that she warned us all about was suddenly getting the big cut of beef at her table. And it just got heavier by the day. You could just see it, and it became strange, and it became oddly dismissive and bubble like. And I guess that happens when you meet Oprah. But we'll see. But hold on, I'm gonna bring in our guest, Miss Kimberly. Give me 1 second so I can set up the proper shot here. Now, I had to earlier today. The internet's been all a dangled today. It's been a bit curious. And I personally, I got to tell you, I blame. Hold on, I blame Elon Musk. I think just in general, the hold on, there we go. put this in here. Um, there we go, and it should. Yeah, and then she pops up. Hold on one second. And 3, 2, 1. I will be bringing her in on this one, and then I got to turn on her audio. And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, author Kimberly herself. And I misspelled the name. I forgot to leave put the other E in there. That is so my. I know it's terrible. Can you check for me so I hear audio from you so I can make sure I'm getting.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Test.
Yes,
test,
I
test.
can, but hold on. I have to flip you over to my headphones as opposed to the speaker, so we don't get horrible feedback. We just want the good kind of feedback. We want the
yes.
And I will. Yeah, there we go. Hi, there she is.
Hi.
Excellent. There you go. There we go. Back to, and then I'll turn off turn off studio mode. There we go. We're back to this, and I'll fix the name thing while we're sitting here because that's what I do. Yeah. Yeah. My bad. I don't like and I have to say, I'm sure that happens with some regularity. It's no excuse.
Yes, it does.
But it's like when I get Hall at Starbucks when they put an extra L on my name, and I'm like, read that back to me, please. What does that say to you? And me with my Chicago hard A's, hell, you might as well, I don't know how you make that mistake. They're like, all right, okay. Hi, welcome.
Hello.
How you doing? Obviously, Twitter was down for a moment, so it's almost like a premonition of the future.
Yes.
Because I have the theory that it's going away sometime soon. That it is stampeding towards its own demise. Sadly,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's and like I have to say, like, it's so unnecessary. Like I mean, honestly, at a certain point, I think we all feel that Musk serves as basically a chaos agent.
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Yeah, and that
the stuff that he posts, it's just gross.
Yeah, it is. Well, and here's the thing: I don't think that. I mean, we were just talking about Marianne Williamson. I think you heard some of that at the tail end. But yes. I used to work for her. I used to run her lectures. Wow. I used to run the sound. I was this long-haired dude at her lectures who used to I was known for running the mic to people in the audience without them having to get up, and I would go across the seats on the armrests. Wow. and at one point I did it was I've been studying martial arts my whole life, and I'm weird that way. And I did a one-handed cartwheel over someone.
Whoa.
Once because somebody got up. I almost tripped, and so I just lurched myself up and did a full one-handed cartwell off into the thing, landed in the thing, and got a round of applause. It was just weird. It was a very odd time. There are pictures of me with Emma, Marianne's daughter, in when I was basically like the stunt older brother, the goofy straight white male around in a crowd of people who weren't. And I'm the one who talked her into getting Marianne.com. She thought I was ridiculous. Wow. And I explained why in the future people will want their own URL with their own name, and you'll want to get it as soon as you possibly can on every service. That's why she has Marianne on Twitter as well.
Wow.
And I ran Ethernet cable throughout her house. Back in the day, I did tech support on her old MacBook, remember those dark gray MacBooks back in the day with the clickety clack keyboards and stuff that were very fancy, but have less than like a digital watch power, from 1985 compared to modern stuff. I troubleshooted all that stuff. I hooked her printer up for the original drafts of A Return to Love. She thanks me in Illuminata, the book, so I've known her for a long time, and I care about her as a human being. However, I recognize that there's an ego aspect that has just run amok at this point. And the irony.
She makes really good points. And I saw her back in the day too. I think it's probably in the late 80s. And I never became one of her regular followers or listeners or readers or whatever, but I still what she said resonated with me, and I liked her, and I thought what she had to say was valuable. The thing that bothers me, though, even though I agree with some of the points that she makes, is that she's willing to go on Fox and
Right.
talk trash about Democrats. And it's like, look, you don't have to always agree with the Democrats, but to go on that propaganda network, there's something very wrong with that.
Well, it's a feature, not a bug. Because let me tell you, like
Yeah.
she and Jimmy Dore are spouting the almost identical same talking points, and the
Mm-hmm.
only reason they're on there is to crap on Democrats. Because the idea
Mm-hmm.
is that when they want to, they will tie her most far left leaning ideas about things
Yeah.
to the Democratic Party. And when they don't want to, they will bring her on to criticize the Democratic Party. It's
Mm-hmm.
a cake and eat it too
Mm-hmm.
situation. By the way,
Mm-hmm.
Kimberly Johnson is with us. She's the host of the Start Me Up podcast. She wrote the Virgin Diaries, Peyton's Choice. She's on the Sexy Liberal Podcasting Network. We are neighbors. They carry
Yes.
they carry a cut up version of my Saturday show on there. Bless Chris Lavoie for the hard work that he does. Um, and you live in DC, right? You're in
Yes. DC
okay.
area. Yes.
Yes, right. The greater DC area, and it
Yes.
is great. No, there. I have to say, that when I tour as a comic, there are only a couple of places that Summer actually wants to go with me when I go, and,
DC's one.
yeah, DC's one of them. DC, not New York. Interestingly enough,
Mm-hmm.
Chicago, she
Interesting.
can
Wow.
kind of take her, leave. Seattle, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco, because we go to
Yeah.
these places. But in DC, like that's, she's a NASA head. And so we always go to the Space Museum.
Right.
We have our like regular like date weekend thing that we
Yeah.
do in DC. So I have a real love for that city. It's very peculiar,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yes, it is very peculiar.
it's a weird town. But
It
at the
is.
same time, it's a and we won't get into DC statehood. We won't get into
No.
that throwabout at all. But what for people that don't know, and we'll kind of bring some folks up to speed in this, is like, what brought you to DC? What was your kind of your impetus to get into? I mean, in many ways, I guess there was a political leap for a lot of folks. We were all going to do
Mm-hmm.
one thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
politics played a large part in. Okay, this is now a serious endeavor for me.
Yeah.
That I'm not going to fiddle around the edges of it. I've got to address this directly. What was there a particular jumping point for you?
Yes. Well, I mean, first, I'll just say I used to be an actor. I was on Days of Our Lives for 7 years. It
Hmm.
was a very small role, but I had formal training in that. And then I went into outside sales and I lived in Los Angeles this whole time.
Hmm.
Cut to in 2010, I released The Virgin Diaries with my mother. It's a compilation anthology about first time sex.
Hmm.
And so I was just busy kind of promoting myself as an
Right.
author. And Rush Limbaugh called Sandra Flick a slut. And, he did that
Oh
three
yes, right.
day, yes. And so I'll tell you, I did an open letter to Rush Limbaugh from a liberal slut on my blog. And the reason that I wanted to do it was because I wanted him to attack me, because I wanted
Right.
everyone to hear about my
Sure.
book. But that actually got the attention of a blogger, a political blogger, and that was the impetus. That was how I started. So I started blogging, and then it
Hmm.
was just one thing led to another, which led to me eventually meeting Bob Seska.
Hmm.
And because he's a podcaster and has been a broadcaster forever, I
Right.
thought, you know what, I can do this. And so here I am. Yes. But
Right.
I mean, I had been in politics, I've been interested. I would say that the 2000 election really caught my attention with the hanging chads. And
Right.
so that was not the start of it, but that was when it started to get really serious. And then when it really became serious was Sarah Palin. That really, she freaked me
Gotcha.
out.
Yeah. Well, I was always, it was funny because the introduction of Sarah Palin was the moment when I knew Obama was going to win. And the reason,
Interesting.
because the second it happened, because it was so ham-handed,
Hmm.
and I was aware of her a little bit already, because,
Mhm.
most people were like, oh, she's the most popular governor. And like, well, yeah,
Right.
she's in the only state that hands out checks to everybody for oil money. Of course, the governor of Alaska is always going to be more popular because everybody there gets a little like, thanks for living in Alaska while we suck the goo under your feet. Um, Check from the governor's office. Like it's,
Wow.
they're like, oh, all right, yeah, she's lovely. And then they go, of course, buy oxycodone and crush it and snort it. But that said, um, they did a poll within, I want to say, 3 weeks of her being added to the campaign, and she had a 70% favorability rating in the
Wow.
Republican Party, and at that time 20%
Wow.
electability rating. It went down
Wow.
to 12. It went down to 12 in less than 6 months. Republicans, it was do you like her? I love her. Would you
Yeah.
vote for her? Fuck no. And that was the
Yeah.
answer. And I was like, this is done. And then,
Yeah.
obviously,
Interesting. I didn't
McCain
know
didn't
that.
help himself, and he was like, we should
No.
call off our campaign to deal with the crash. And you're like, are you stupid?
Mhm.
You're going to have,
You know.
what do you call off your camp? Neither one of them were incumbents. So what
Right.
the fuck? Neither one of you could run back to the White House and start working. He literally wanted to treat it like an incumbent. I was like, this is done. This is over. But
Yeah.
her
Interesting. Yeah.
part was, and this has to do with, I guess, Ramaswamy, the guy who's running on the Republican side right now, who's one of the upstart people who's running for president, who's it's the same issue with Sarah Palin.
Mhm.
He's an Indian American man, and there is no way MAGA especially, but the Republican Party elects anybody who isn't
No.
white and male for
No.
that presidency. Sorry, if you want to
Exactly.
be a president of color or a female president, the
Run as a
Democrats are
Democrat.
your only
Yeah.
ticket. It's the only way you're going to
Mhm.
do it because they're just not going
Mhm.
to. Yeah. So, people are waving to you, by the way, from Delaware.
Oh.
Just for the record,
Hi.
because you're so DC adjacent, nobody even knows what the hell that is. Right. So that was. But your reaction to her, like, was it that it was insulting that she was
I
this
was
bubblehead?
actually, I did not
Or
have your perception, your perspective on this, and I wasn't so political. I mean,
Mhm.
I was political adjacent, so I
Sure.
was paying attention, but I wasn't fully invested. So she really scared the shit out of me. And I
Mhm.
remember after her big speech, I ran to my computer and I started looking for gossip and something that might ruin her because I was thinking, all right,
Sure.
America
Oh,
loves to put people on pedestals and then quickly knock them off.
that's
So I
true.
thought, do we have the time to love her and then to knock her off? And then Katie Couric came along and she was finished. So I felt better, but she scared me. And I think, you know what, the fear was merited because I do believe that she kind of represented here is the face of the Tea Party. And
Mhm.
she, just like with Newt Gingrich and other key players, kind of changed the trajectory of the party and, getting worse and worse and worse, heading more
Right.
toward the fascist, kind of ideology.
Well, and I guess that's an excellent point. Is that was she in some ways the the seed point for what would eventually become MAGA and
Yeah.
Trumpism? That frustration among that crowd that they
Yes.
believe themselves to be the majority and find out desperately that they are not and get very
Right.
mad and then start QAnoning all over the web to try and
Mhm.
find people who are just as gullible, stupid, or psychotic as they are. And try to pass it off
Yeah.
as a political issue. Now, um, well, so and then what was the point where you're like, I mean, obviously the Rush Limbaugh being I had forgotten about that. Like he says so much awful,
Yeah.
it was hard to keep track after a while. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Yeah.
it became noise at a certain point. Like Rush Limbaugh, by the time Trump was even, giving him
Mhm.
accolades and
Yes.
having him stand up, in a lot of ways, it was right at the time where everybody was just like jockeying around him, like the
Mhm.
Skeksis at the end of Dark Crystal, just waiting for the emperor to die, going, trial by stone, where somebody tried to grab the scepter. And that's where I think they are all right now. Like Bongino
Yeah.
wants to be
Yes.
that, and blah, blah.
Yes.
So on our side of the fence, obviously, like you and Bob are podcasting, and for people who don't know, give them a rundown of the podcast of Start Me Up and what your kind of mission statement is for it, if you have one.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
basically, it's mostly focused on politics. It's very
Yep.
casual. Lots of swears are permitted and allowed, and
Sure.
even encouraged. I
Fucking
just like to
awesome.
have political political conversations. I do interview people, but I like to keep it really casual. And then on occasion, I'll interview actors because I used to be one. So I like to just kind of get away from them. But that's not all the time.
Yeah.
Most of the time, I talk to political people, and I've had people like Jamie Harrison and Brian Karam. You've been on my show,
Yep.
so I like to just have a mix up and really just kind of. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert per se on anything, but I'm just when I got into this with this whole I'm a liberal slut thing, I took the feminist approach, and so
Sure.
I'm not the academic feminist. To me, I'm like the everyday woman who's lived life and has an opinion about feminism. And so I don't necessarily, I am.
It's a shame that the rights laws being what they are, that you couldn't just use that as your theme song.
But I
I
did take from the Stones. Rolling
Did
Stones.
you? Yeah, right.
Start me
That's
up.
right.
Start me up. There you go.
Sure. The I would have used "I'm the Man" by Anthrax, obviously, if I had to.
There you go.
Because I'm that kind of I'm that kind of Meninist. Whatever. All right. Anyways, as Meninists go, I'm a Anthrax, I'm the Man kind of a guy. So the I'm sure I have a running thing with some of the people who present themselves as lefts. I call them the faux-gressives. Hashtag faux-gressives. People who pretend to be for good things like universal health care and the like, but ultimately spend a good portion of their time kneecapping those actual efforts by being, anti-progress everywhere. Like, and the answer has always been like, or the kind of on the right, one of the ways they talk about it all the time is how progressives hate progress. That's how they mock them, because it never goes anywhere. It's always just this flailing giant thing, and largely because they spend their days tamping it down. As a way forward, sort of, I mean, there's so much I want to talk to you about, but the path forward for a lot of this, where do you see on your end the conversation going, and the sort of the legs of the world of Jim Jordan and their adorable little committees and the like, and Democrats seizing the House and the like next time, and that kind of, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I always ask my guests those kinds of questions. But well, as far as the Republicans, this is my assumption from right now, from this vantage point. It appears they're just going to dig a bigger hole for themselves, because they don't seem to be able to. What I'm trying to say is they just keep going for the crazy. It's like they lie, they make up the. Now, all they ever do is call Democrats pedophiles. That's it. Every Democrat is a pedophile. And so I think that their rhetoric is getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And I think actually it's going to hurt them, because they're going to keep, their base and all that, but it's the independents. And I think the independents are the people that are just going to look at them and say, you know what, just like with Trump, I just can't anymore. This is a very hopeful, optimistic take, and I know that. We have a lot to be concerned about, and I that's when I'm going to go back with Simon Rosenberg. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he takes an optimistic approach, and he was on my show recently and said we all have to be information warriors. And so while we can, a lot of people love to scream at the Democratic Party and say the messaging sucks and all of that. But if you look at where the Republican messaging comes from, the majority of it does not come from the party. It comes from people like Frank Luntz. So we have the Midas brothers. We have, Patriot Takes. There's a whole bunch of individual groups that are doing messaging. And then it's up to us. So I think that, while the Democratic Party is, I think, getting better at messaging, and I think that, we have to kind of, assume a little bit more responsibility as
Right.
voters and also kind of project the positive and take from what the Democrats are giving us.
Yeah,
That's my
I
take on
completely
it.
agree. And this is coming from the guy who coined the term maggot, all with a lowercase t. So the yeah, I find it funny that most of the time, especially when it comes to people referencing the messaging from the Democrats and the like, they spend more of their time talking about how the message sucks, but the product is good without they themselves talking up the product,
But the
talking
product,
up
yes.
like yeah, you know that understanding that the ACA had the seeds for a single payer part in it and
Mm-hmm.
would have been, and we do know that it would have been even more popular, not just with Democrats, of course, but independents as well, had it had that. And I always said that
Mm-hmm.
the look, we have public schools and we have private schools. We have police officers, you can hire
Yes.
security if you want to. Why can't we have public
Good
insurance and
point.
private insurance if you want to augment it? But you can, at the very least, you can buy into a nonprofit system for healthcare. And
Mm-hmm.
if you've got extra money and you want to buy stuff that covers, you know, breast implants for your back just so people love you coming and going, that's knock yourself out.
Yeah.
but
Yeah, I
but
totally agree. Yeah.
yeah, if we have an available public versus a private situation, all it is more competition.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately they don't have, the private insurance companies would lose the part of the actuarial tables that cost them money and gain
Yes.
almost entirely the optional factor
Mm-hmm.
for themselves, which is exactly
Mm-hmm.
what they want. It's just why universities have thrived. Private universities thrive because public education exists. and
Mm-hmm.
and and
Yes.
and so the same thing would be true. And I also thought, by the way, and this there were seeds of this in the ACA, that if individual states had a public option, that the federal government doesn't have to have a public option, but
Mm-hmm.
that you can buy into other states. If if
Mm-hmm.
Washington State has one or
Right.
California has one or whatever, whichever one runs the best, you can buy into theirs. It's still nonprofit. The profits that do get come from it serve the people of the state, build infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. But if at some point you're like, fuck this, California is run by a lunatic and it's terrible now, you can change to the Seattle system instead of, hi, thanks, hold on, my girlfriend just bought me a coffee. And Summer says hi, Kimberly Johnson.
Hi. Hi, Summer.
Thanks. So love you. So we do this out of our houses. This is
That's
how
so
it works.
cute.
Yeah, it's great. So that that you have more of those options that will appeal, I guarantee, by the way. And Biden wanted to,
Yes.
he was pushing for the single payer more than anybody else. And by the
Mm-hmm.
way, bless his heart, it would not have passed because there were people
Right.
there hamstringing it, a few Democrats, but
Mm-hmm.
all of the Republicans. That
Yeah.
will change if you
Mm-hmm.
introduce that. And especially, like I said, they should introduce a thing which allows people to buy state programs across state lines. If a state wants to set
Mm-hmm.
one up, anybody in the country can buy into it. Every red states will be the first ones on board
Yes,
running
they would.
their own public insurance because it would profit for the
Mm-hmm.
state, and they're already on the federal tit more than anybody else. So that's the other thing. So the national divorce, I want to get your
Oh
take on that as well,
God.
because that brings us accidentally and lovingly into the arms of the national divorce. Yeah. So
Oh God.
uh-huh.
Well, okay, this is what I have to say about I don't want to be the killjoy liberal scold and
Hmm.
say don't make fun of Marjorie, because obviously there's so much there to mock and make fun of.
Sure.
But I think that a lot of Democratic voters get caught up in only mocking her. And I think
Sure.
that while we should be mocking these people, because I do think there is merit to mocking them, I think
Hmm.
it's important that we also have to, like you said, sell the product, get
Hmm.
focused on the product, and focused on why they're in the way of the product, because
Right.
they're in the way of our solution. And so it really bothered me when she was screaming at Biden that all I saw was pictures of her screaming and comparing her to a monkey. And it's like, that's fine, but let's get to the important stuff that's holding our country back. And
Sure.
she's doing it.
Yep.
And so I want every Democratic voter, it's like, I'm not trying to be that scold. Make fun of her all you want, but also point out what these people are doing to hurt the country, because there are, for all these people who are political junkies on Twitter, there are a lot of us who just, oh, I didn't know that, or you've introduced me to something
Yeah.
that I didn't realize before. So as you know, savvy as you might be, there's always something new to learn. That happens to me every day on Twitter,
Hmm.
or watching MSNBC or watching you. Oh, I never thought of it that way. So we can
Right.
do that for each other.
I
So,
agree.
I
I
mean, but
agree.
as
I
far
mean,
as the national divorce, ugh.
well, right. Well, again, she just went through a divorce because she was
Right.
fucking
Yes.
what, upwards of 5 different dudes, and shaming her husband about it, which was the whole
Yeah,
part of it.
yeah.
Like, he didn't apparently. Yeah, and I don't give a shit how people roll. If you have that
Mhm.
kind of relationship, it's been my opinion, based on nothing at all, that's the very 70s relationship that Bill and Hillary had their entire lives.
Mhm.
Like, there was a ton of boomers who came up in the late 60s, early 70s who were like, we're going to have,
Yeah.
kind of a free, almost like a French lifestyle. We'll get
Yeah.
married and we're going to stay together, but you can have
Yeah.
lovers and I can have lovers, and we'll have our rules,
Mhm.
like no return visits or blah, 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 whatever
Right.
you know what I mean? There's tons of that going around, and nobody can talk about it in politics, so it always hops
Mhm.
around under the thing. And I, honest to God, wouldn't give a rat fuck if she was nailing everybody at the gym and her husband's
Right.
on board with it, and that's her thing.
Yeah.
That seemed to be a bigger dig for Laura Loomer, who attacks her nonstop, which is hilarious. It's
Yeah.
popcorn theater. But again, I don't care, except don't proselytize about Christian values to me then, and don't castigate other people and then get caught with with your skirt up or your pants down or both. And especially with like the RSBN host. I don't like, it's so, and she's like weird. It is like we all watched it like a fucking, like a shitty clean flicks rom-com, where she just showing up on his show, and then suddenly
Oh
they're
my
kind
God.
of they're sharing a
Yeah.
mic, and then he's in her office when she walks out with the fucking balloon, and then divorce.
Yeah.
Ugh. So
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. So, and audience, that's when I think the easy simple thing is, when you joke about her, also just tag on a sentence that
Yeah.
says, like about the national divorce. Like, you can
Right.
make all the jokes you want, and then at the end of it go, the red states wouldn't exist except for blue state tax dollars. That kind of stuff. Like
Right.
those little things.
Yes.
Always tag on some element beyond, if you're in a feed and you're in a flame war, I understand. But if you're
Right.
addressing something that's fresh, that comes out, is
Mhm,
great
mhm.
advice from our guest this morning, author Kimberly herself, on Twitter for as long as it exists. Are you on Mastodon and all that shit as well? You're on,
Yeah. But I
You're on
prefer
Spoutable.
Spoutable.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. I prefer
I'm on
Spoutable.
Spoutable
Yeah.
as well. I'm trying to get the API on Spoutable up and running so that I could, I can plug
Right.
it into like my buffer and get it running. And I think that'll be the
Yeah.
tipping point. The other thing is
It
Spoutable.
will.
Yeah, they totally will. And I love the fact that it's, started by the people who did Bot Sentinel. So they're going to be
Yes.
on the lookout for fake accounts all the time,
Mhm.
which is all that
Yeah.
matters. I don't mind
Right.
arguing with anybody as long
Yeah.
as I know they're good faith and real.
Right. Yeah. And you know what? I just want to say about Spoutable, and I do not work for them or anything, but I know Christopher Boozy, and I knew
Hmm.
he was going to be successful with this. He's offering us this platform that it's
Yeah.
not only for Democrats, because obviously conservatives are allowed on there. And as you said, as long as they're good faith and they're arguing policy or whatever, they're invited. But
Yeah.
that he's giving us this opportunity for 2024 and beyond to
Yes.
have a platform where we can start working on that narrative together, where we can
Right.
have disinformation free, troll free, Russian disinformation
Conversations.
free.
Right.
Yes. And I think that that's huge because, as you pointed out, Elon Musk, I mean, the things that he tweets are just, they're vile. They're vile and they're gross and they're tacky,
Right.
and he is a chaos agent. And I am staying on Twitter right now because I'm on everything, but I
Right.
feel like I'm going to use Twitter to build over on Spoutable and other sites that I'm on, because
Agreed.
I assume there's going to be more sites that pop up. And I also think it's good for all of us to kind of be diversified. I know we're all going to land on like maybe 3 or 4 in the end, but it's
Mhm.
good to diversify, try out what you like, see what works for you. But as far as the sites that I've been on so far, the new one, Spoutable is the best as far as making sure nobody's going to There's no targeted harassment, no data mining, nothing. So I'm
Right.
all like pro
Yeah.
spottable.
No, I totally agree. And I'm now thanks to you guys verified on there so that they know that, like,
Yeah,
I have an actual
it's really
style.
you.
They're aware it's
Yes.
really me, which is terrific. And I've started working on something. Mark, who's in our chat, who's one of our mods and really helps out. We had to sit down because he helps me with the Patreon stuff, and we had to sit down. And while we were talking, I came up with what I call Operation Pineapple. And because Trump is afraid of pineapples being thrown at him. I don't remember that. And then,
No,
remember that?
that's right. Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
random as shit. And also and I was originally calling it Operation Hand Grenade, but I thought that was too violent sounding. And pineapple hand grenades are, that's the generalized shape. So I was like, okay.
Yes.
And what it's going to be, and I'm prepping this now, and it will launch in another couple weeks once I figure out the best delivery system for it, is a single link that people can get on certain topics. When people go, the Russia hoax was you can put this link in, and if the person clicks on it, it will populate their browser with dozens of links that say the truth.
Right. Oh,
So
wow. That's
instead of just
awesome.
sending them one thing or trying to
Mm-hmm.
get them or clipping pictures of headlines or whatever. And it may end up being the simplest way. I might have to just build a page on my own website that has links to them that goes, hi, you've been brought here because you're an asshole and you think that Russiagate was a hoax. And here's all the links that you refuse to read or pretend don't exist. Or maybe somebody just didn't let you know that they existed. And here they all are. And it will be in categories about what Mike Flynn did, and so we can just send that like on individual topics, and that's Operation Pineapple. And at some point,
that's a great idea.
I may include, if I can, sort of like video interviews with like yourself and with like Jackie Scheckner, who I used to do a podcast about. She works for Planned Parenthood now, about abortion and all that kind of stuff, so that it has at the top of it, like, here's a little talk, by the way. This is what you're going to see. Here's the links below, and you can read them. But this is generally what you're missing, and kind of allow that to deliver. It's going to be it's a big project, but it's going into 2024. That's what I want, us to be able to do. That instead of like, where was that thing? Remember this? Remember that little story and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to try and aggregate that as best I can.
Wow.
So that you can send pineapples to people about Trump's Russia connections, about Jared Kushner's
I'm all over
Saudi
it. I'll
shit.
be totally using that. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you, and at some point I might, reach out to you and to Bob and to, obviously like Chris Lavoie, because he's gathering clips and stuff all the time for his show, for Steph's show, to just kind of like, what do you think the best ammo for pushback on some of these things is that you've seen? Like when you send in, like this one usually shuts them up. This one's the one where they usually back down.
Yeah.
I've got a good deal of those, but that's what I'm shooting for. So that's going into 2024. So Operation Pineapple is a go. And
awesome.
and I think that's, I may knock on your door to promote it at some point, but
I'm all there. I'm there.
But so the that said, over the last, like, what would you say, like, for you is the most frustrating stories that you keep seeing coming up that either don't get enough pushback or just kind of like hang out there without being addressed? And kind of like the way you were talking about MTG, being mocked but not addressed. What, are there certain issues where you're like, why is no one dunking on this?
Well, one of the issues that I will always complain that it's not sexy enough, even for liberals, and Bob Suska and I talk about this all the time, is climate. Because I think that, we all are aware of what's going on to a degree, but it's so scary and it's so awful. And when something about climate is posted, it doesn't get as much attention. You're absolutely going to get more attention when you say Ted Cruz has no balls, or, when you make fun of Marjorie's feet or something like that.
Sure.
And again, I understand why it's funny, it grabs your attention. But I wish that we would talk about the climate a little bit more seriously, just as voters, and not be so afraid of it. But I don't know. There's all kinds of things that everything almost now I've been in since the beginning of this year. It's like just reading my Twitter feed is so upsetting, because all the stories coming down, especially with the Republicans behaving the way they are, And I will say too, one of the big things that's freaking me out is the whole transgender hate. I just
Mm-hmm.
had Plastic Martyr on my show. She is so amazing. I highly
Yep.
recommend following her,
I do.
listening to
Yeah.
her.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't even, she said to me on my show that the reality for trans people in America right now is they wake up every morning and wonder, is today the day I'm going to be murdered
Mm-hmm.
because of who I am? And so that's so upsetting to me. And I think that we should, as liberal voters too, we absolutely have to be there for that whole community. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously the Black community and women and all of, unless you're like a conservative white male,
Right.
there's something going on where you're getting screwed over. But
By the
the
way,
whole LGBT,
if you ask them, they are the targeted
they
minority.
are.
There is
I know they
believe me,
are.
there's enough victim mentality to go around
Hmm.
for the entire earth right now. I will to address a couple of those things. One is
Hmm.
when it comes to climate, you're either preaching to the choir
Hmm.
or you're talking to a non-believer. When you're talking to somebody who is not on board, who does not believe the science, doesn't, think it matters and all that kind of stuff, you are never going to convince them, especially if they are of a religious bent,
Hmm.
if they're religious conservative, that the sky, which is the domain of the Lord, can somehow be taken down by man. They are not going to believe it. I'm telling you up front,
Hmm.
you are banging your head against a wall. But where you can change their mind is pollution.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, the very same people who did cry that climate change is bullshit and blah 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 are genuinely concerned about pollution when it
Hmm.
happens.
Hmm.
The air they breathe, clean water. That's why Trump had to say the cleanest water, the cleanest air.
Yeah.
That's why he had to say that, because he had to talk to his own people. That wasn't just to stiff arm. A lot of people, I think, on the Democratic side thought he was saying that to stiff arm our argument. He wasn't. He was placating a large part. I mean, there are cancer clusters all over Louisiana and Mississippi, and they're not caused by the changes in the tides or greenhouse gases.
Yeah.
It's direct chemical poisoning
Hmm.
of the rivers and streams and stuff around them, and they can resonate with that. And if you reach out to someone and if they're like climate change is bullshit, if you respond to them by going, when did you become pro pollution?
Hmm. Oh, that's so good. That is
It
so good.
shifts the conversation with them to something. And here's the other thing: people can only psychologically respond to things they can manage. Climate
Hmm.
change is an
It's
unmanageable
huge. Yes.
behemoth. It is
Hmm.
fucking impossible. It is impossible for any individual on this planet, including Bill Gates or fucking whoever the richest people in the world are, to single-handedly shift back the effects of climate change. It is a group activity. The whole world has
Hmm.
to be kind of on
Hmm.
board. So the generalized reaction in a world where people got enough problems is to check out.
Out. Yes.
So you cannot
Totally get it.
address,
Yeah.
and you will. That's why it doesn't work. Like for all the love I have for Greta Thunberg, she has done more damage to the climate movement than almost any single person, because everybody just takes their hands off the reins. Like if you tell me the world's going to end in 10 years, or we're already on a path to doom, the vast majority, especially maggots, especially Republicans, are going to go, well, fuck it. You got to die of something. Smoke them if you got
You
them. And
don't look
that's
up.
right. Totally. Well, even still, like in the case of Don't Look Up, the messaging of that was just like Bird Box. It was actually ultimately a right wing statement, which
Hmm.
was, we're fucked anyways. Looking up's not going to change
Yes.
a goddamn
Yep.
thing. The interesting thing
Hmm.
about Don't Look Up making climate change an asteroid as a terrible analogy,
I
because
know. I totally know what you're going to say.
we
Yeah.
did not we did not steer the Earth into the path of the asteroid through human
Hmm.
endeavors, and so there was no
Right.
recourse. And the idea that you could solve it in a short time, that's another,
Yeah. Yeah. And
so
look, yeah, looking up wasn't going to change a damn thing.
nope,
So
not a thing. And whereas in
hmm
climate, it does. But I would
it
say
does. Yeah.
shift them to pollution. Why are you
And
pro
that's good.
pollution?
And that's good. And the reason, the thing is that when politicians see us talking about things out, in on Twitter, on Facebook, whatever, they pay more attention to it. So when we ignore it, it's just being ignored. And obviously Biden is not ignoring it. And he,
Mm-mm.
there are all kinds of things that the Democrats have done that are pro-climate. And of course we need more to do. But they, that is such a good point. If we
Mm-hmm.
make it pro-pollution and we get outraged about that and we keep
Yes.
pushing that, then politicians, including red state politicians, will see that and act on it.
That's right. Why are you pro pollution? I'm not pro pollution. What I'm saying is, I think someone inverted what we're talking. You address the person
Oh,
who does not believe in climate change,
right. Yes,
and say
yes.
to them, why are you
Right,
pro pollution? And the
right,
idea is, if when you say that to them, they'll go, I'm not. I'm like, well,
right.
you're supporting like the lowest res engines we could possibly have, the like fossil fuels that is like, why wouldn't you want to shift to situations that are more reliable, even if it takes time, even if you think we can't do it quickly, and
Yeah,
we cannot.
right. Hmm.
The goal over time, even if it wasn't killing the planet, it's killing us. 100,000 kids
Us,
go
yeah.
to the emergency room for asthma related, pollution related asthma attacks every year. Always
Hmm.
have. It gets worse and better in different times, but it's always there.
Hmm.
So why
Hmm.
be for that? And somebody in the chat also misunderstood. I don't think Greta is wrong. I like what she does, but I already understand the science and have respect for the movement towards a better approach to the climate, trying to solve it. I'm talking about what she does to people who are either not wholly on board or against it.
Hmm.
That's what that part of the movement does, because they make those people give up. And
Hmm.
there's a tipping point. There's a real tipping point, and you see this with voters, I don't doubt, where if they think it's done, they're just not going to vote
Hmm.
anymore. This is just crazy. This is I mean, it's
Right.
all nuts.
Yeah,
and
apathy.
and
Yeah.
Right. And that is, by the way, the goal these
Hmm.
days, and has been for some time, of Russell Brand, of TYT, of Jimmy Dore,
Hmm.
of of the faux peaceniks that were
Yes.
at that Russia rally. They don't. It's not
Yeah.
that they want you to change or believe or whatever, because they're screaming at the choir. What they're trying to get you to do, and this is goes back to our talking about Marianne being on Fox, is the Democrats are just as bad as the Republicans. Two legs in the same pair of pants. Fuck it.
Hmm.
That's the goal.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then the other one, oh, transgenderism, the
Yes.
that idea.
Yeah.
As having been on Queer as Folk and done a lot of GLAAD events and stuff, I have a bone to pick with GLAAD about how they handle trans deaths that terrorizes trans people, where they take every trans person who dies of unnatural causes and attribute it to anti-trans hate. And there's enough anti-trans hate without
Hmm.
stacking. If you die in a domestic violence situation or in a drug deal, it's not because you were trans necessarily in
Right.
that situation. And so to add that to the number of people, to say the number of trans people being killed for being trans is going up, is a terrible thing to say to trans people in a situation where, for all practical purposes, life is becoming more accepting. Never mind the Don Juniors of the world. The
Hmm.
vast majority of Americans believe that trans people should have the right to exist. I mean, you could just look at, they have gender neutral bathrooms in the Kansas airport. Like, this is not 1952. And you have to
Yeah.
and that reminder is just as important, because I
Hmm.
would rather trans people, while being obviously protecting themselves and making sure they're not in unsafe situations or whatever, not believe that everyone they run into is out to get them, because it
Yeah.
materially is not true. It simply is
Hmm.
not. Are there people that are actively? Yeah. And that
Hmm.
and we as a society have a responsibility amongst ourselves to deal with that. But that isn't trans people's fault. And I
No.
think letting trans people know that they're loved and respected, just as every other human being is, and we just want you to flourish doing what
Hmm.
you do, and you're at some point, hopefully, your gender identity is immaterial to
No.
your existence as a human. Eventually, we get there closer by letting them. I
Yeah.
that thought is very sad to me. And
Yeah.
my goal, and if I could say anything to any trans person who's watching, is that you're going to be okay today. You really are. And there's lots of us out here hoping you have a great day. Period. End of story.
Yeah.
I just hope your day goes great. That's all I'm saying. And that's what I always think. And it's maybe it's the unsaid stuff. Maybe that's what if I might put words in your mouth in that regard, that, a lot of these things need be said and they may not.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah.
issue number 3, I think you were headed towards one before we address those. Yeah. And then, yeah.
Well, I don't
Mhm.
even remember what
Yeah,
maybe
right. Yeah.
issue number
We've
3 would
solved
be.
them all.
Well, okay, what about
Yeah.
though the Mississippi, in Mississippi, they're basically trying to they just agreed on a bill that would make basically everybody in power white.
Oh,
You know what I'm
right.
talking about?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So
Well,
I mean that's just part of the white supremacist bullshit that we're dealing
sure.
with ongoing, and it's extremely upsetting to me. And it's funny. I just want to say, obviously, some of the Black people that I speak with and ask questions, because I'll ask specifically some Black women that I know, and I'll
Mhm.
say, all right, as a white woman, I look at what I see with the Republican Party and the white supremacy. It's freaking me out, and they'll say, oh yeah, well, we're totally used to it. And so
Right.
they're not as freaked out as I am, because this is
Mhm.
something they've been dealing with their whole life. But the thing is that it's not that I didn't know about it. Of course, I knew about racism. I understood it, but people weren't allowed
Mhm.
back. I don't know, prior to Trump, prior to Ted Cruz, whatever. It was you couldn't say it out loud, but you can
Right.
say it out loud now, and that's the difference. And so that is just. I mean, I it's terrifying to me that this is becoming normalized. And
Mhm.
I don't want to diminish what my Black friends are saying, because they have been dealing with it their entire lives. So
Right.
for them, this is no big surprise. But what's upsetting to me is that now it's just like we're seeing it all over the place. It's everywhere, where 15 years ago, you weren't seeing it everywhere. Not like
Right.
this.
Right. Yeah, uh just for the record, that's doomed to fail. And
Yes,
in
it
many,
is.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And it's also, in my way of viewing it, having grown up in the South, looks more to me like the last dying gasp of the monster at the
Yeah.
end of a horror movie than
Yeah.
a new resurgence of the KKK and the like.
Well, I'm going to
That
take that. And I've had other people on my show basically make that point. And I do agree with you. I think you're right about that.
Mhm. Yeah, and um, uh, uh, and by the way, we should never stop talking about how awful it is, and again, mocking it
Hmm.
incessantly as
Hmm.
absurd and goofy and embarrassing and
Hmm.
silly. Because again, right wingers like this have no shame, but they
No.
do get embarrassed.
Hmm.
Trump has
Hmm.
no shame, but he's easily embarrassed.
Hmm. Yeah.
That
Good
is,
point. Yeah.
and so that's why the mockery is not just an okay part of it, it is a
It's
necessity, but it
yes.
has to work, and you
100%.
can't,
Hmm.
they feed on your kind of rage. Like, if most of these owning the libs is the entire point of it, they don't actually have
Hmm.
policy or that's going to go anywhere, so they want you
Yeah.
outraged. If they've made you mad, good day at work.
Yep.
And so
Well, it's
the
just like a phone call. The longer you can keep someone on a prank phone call, you win.
right, that's exactly right. They're the jerky boys, without the humor, but they're the
Yes.
jerky
Yes.
boys of politics. But
Totally. Absolutely.
yeah, and the yeah, so I don't really fear that that's going to go anywhere, because it violates the Constitution at its base. So it's, them trying it is again driving those independents away.
Yes,
Is the
but I
hilaria.
think the fact that, like here, I keep going back, and I've said it before, but Kristen Johnston tweeted
Hmm.
something like, "I think we peaked in the '90s" or something like that. Just as America, and it made me laugh, because I felt like things, at least from my perspective, in the '90s. Okay, I was in my 20s, and I was not necessarily political, but I wasn't
Hmm.
worried about birth control. I knew there were racists, and I avoided them. And they were, in
Right.
my opinion, easy to avoid. And it's all become so in your face now. And so I think that's my point, is that, and I agree with you, it's not going to go anywhere. But the fact that they're being so loud about it. And I will go again with what you're saying, that, yeah, this
Hmm.
is the last grasp from desperate. It's a desperate grasp, and I get it.
Right.
But we are not yet out of the woods.
Mm-mm.
So because we're not out of the woods, that's why I feel this is all kind of freaking me out watching it
Hmm.
play out.
Yeah. I I guess, at a certain point I take on that whole kind of like baby boomer thing of like, I've seen the end of the world so many times that, and it hasn't
Yeah.
come yet, that I kind of take some of it in stride. And as a comedian, it's kind of my job,
Right. Yeah.
you know, because with it, once we stop voting and stop joking, that's when fists fly. And I think that's
Yeah.
part of my job, is to keep that at bay a little bit. And honestly, I'm not pretending to be as optimistic as I am. I will say that a lot of what I see in the anger of the maggot crowd, and the dwindling crowd that it is, because it is
Mhm,
getting
mhm.
smaller and smaller. Look at CPAC this weekend. Did you?
Yes.
That
Yes, it's embarrassing. Nobody
Oh,
was
it's
there.
beautiful, so beautiful. And somebody was like dicking
Mhm.
with Kimberly Guilfoyle, because she would say something that cut to like just the half-filled crowd on purpose.
Yeah.
Just like they were mad at her or something. It was hilarious. But I will say that there is increasingly a situation where the racists among us, and they have been there for a long time, and they are virulent, and they
Mhm,
occasionally trick their kids into being the same way,
mhm.
are feeling the push of sitting at a lunch counter or on a bus or in a random area, and saying something they think they're
Mhm.
allowed to say, or that they say in their own home out loud, and the response is not positive, and that's a new
No.
thing for them, and they're just angry. And the other thing too is
Mhm.
this, if I may, as a reminder, this is not a window. This is a curated visor. This is blinders. This is a narrowing of your life's vision, not an expansion of it, unless you take active measures.
Mhm.
Everybody on the internet is seeking to narrow your vision to
Mhm.
ultimately their product, I suppose, if they're trying to sell something, or their ideology if they're trying to get you on board. And so,
Mhm.
in the case of Twitter, especially, that has gotten narrower and narrower
Mhm.
and narrower like that. But do not mistake your phone and your digital devices, and or even your television set, for a window of reality as the
Mhm.
outside. You always have to understand someone is fucking with the clouds out that window
Mhm.
all the time. And we
Yeah.
lose that, because then because that's how the right makes you think you're outnumbered.
Mhm.
There's a psychological
Yeah.
thing of seeing the same tweet, even when you and I are like
Mhm.
quote tweeting something, and you see this in
Mhm.
your feed, I don't doubt, where we're all reacting to something, but we
Yes.
see the same tweet over and over again because everybody's reacting
Mhm.
to it, and psychologically, unless you're prepped against it, it feels like
Mhm.
it's being said again and again and again and again and again and again, even if it was said only once.
Yeah.
That
Totally.
like that.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, there was an article. I've mentioned this many times, and I think his name is McKay Coppins,
Hmm.
and he did a deep dive into Facebook MAGA. So he signed up and only followed MAGA accounts, and then would only follow those suggested that were more MAGA accounts. And he
Mm.
said that even though he understood logically what was happening in reality, he got sucked into it. And he started kind of, believing it, even though he understood that it wasn't real. So,
Hmm.
yes, your point, the more you see something, and then that same point was made in that documentary, The Brainwashing of My Dad,
Hmm.
where this girl's father was
Right.
a liberal and then listened to Rush Limbaugh and all the other ones. And then eventually he came out of it because he was introduced to the truth, but it's repetitive messaging that becomes your normal.
Hey, no fish hook works unless it's got a worm on it, and
Hmm.
there will be truth in what those folks say. It will just
Hmm.
couch a lie. That's the
Hmm.
wolf in sheep's clothing. It's the
Yeah.
sheep that is enticing, the sheep that allows you to walk amongst everybody else. And so people can be forgiven for understanding that they'll take a truth, something that is true, and say, because this is true, everything else you believe is a lie because it
Hmm. Hmm.
contradicts the other aspects of things. This is a constant thread on all of the doom sprayer networks, the ones who, the Door and Brand and TYT in that
Yeah.
regard. And certainly on Fox News, it's all they do. But that guy, what he experienced was it like it was all worm until the hook set.
Yeah,
And so people
right.
got to just be aware of that.
Yes.
You have to be a conscientious viewer of material. So
Mhm,
this would and I we've only got about like a little under 10 minutes left, and I want to um ask kind of like, what are your aggregates for news and information that you get stuff from, that you return to as a reliable source, and then some books you'd recommend. stuff that you read or that you've read in your life that was sort of pivotal to your, either your philosophy or your art as a writer, or, something that stands out to you that people can kind of take on themselves?
Well, I'm going to go for the obvious with where I go. I mean, I go to the Atlantic, the New York
Mm-hmm.
Times, Washington Post, certain writers that I love. Of course, the names are escaping me,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll come back to that in a minute. And I'm talking politically. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I prefer anybody who's going to not put too much of their own opinion in it, especially when it comes to reporting on politics.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, those are the big publications, and then of course I do enjoy Lawrence O'Donnell very much.
Yeah.
I like the lineup on MSNBC. I like all of them at night. Joy Reid, all
Mm-hmm.
of those people. I don't religiously watch them, but I do trust them. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, Rachel Maddow. And one, I just want to push one book. I push this book a lot, but it's so
Okay.
good. It's called Wrapped in the Flag. I don't remember the rest of the title, but Wrapped in the Flag by, I believe it's Claire Connor. And
Mm-hmm.
this woman was the daughter of one of the founding fathers of the John Birch Society, who
Wow.
was, one of the other founders was Fred Koch, Father Koch. And
Mm.
so her father and Fred Koch and whoever else started up the John Birch Society. And
Mm-hmm.
she lays out in a very easy to understand story of her life and the John Birch Society. And you can see that basically up until 2010, they did not have political power. But the Tea Party is kind of like the new version of the
Mm-hmm.
John Birch Society, and that's when they gained power. And yes, we
Right.
can take it back to Newt Gingrich and all of that, but the power is when they got into Congress. The Tea Party got in 2010 and really took hold of it. And it's all that same ideology. And it's such an important book because while it's easy to understand for just, if you're not hugely political, you can grasp it because it's a
Right.
personal story. But
It's
Mary Trump's
it's
books are also good.
It's
Sorry.
Wrapped in the Flag: What I Learned Growing Up in America's Radical Right and How I Escaped and Why My Story Matters Today, which is why I think you had a hard time remembering that. That is the
Exactly.
biggest that's the biggest subtitle I've ever seen in a book, I think, that wasn't intending to be funny.
Right,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, Wrapped
But
in the
it's a
Flag
really good book.
by Claire Connor. I'll tweet that out after the
Yes.
show too, or I'll spout it out. Spout it out.
Yes, absolutely. Spout it out. But it's really, really good. And anything Mary Trump writes, just get it.
Yeah.
And the book that I want to read now, How to Win Any Argument or something, is Mehdi Hassan's new book. I'd like to read
Oh,
that.
okay.
I haven't
Right
read
on.
it yet.
Yeah, I'm not interested in winning every argument because some
Yeah.
arguments need not be had.
That's true.
But yes, I've been looking forward to that book as well. And then do you go to and I guess uh, we talk. So Friday, I've got Malcolm Nance is coming on finally, and then Wednesdays I have my
Awesome.
friend Philip Bittner on, who's become a dear friend over this time. He's in Ukraine, and he comes on my Saturday show and on Wednesdays, and we kind of get a regular update. What have been your thoughts and your experience on the Ukraine war, and and our national politics around that as well?
Well, I'm so I understand both sides of the argument about giving them a certain amount of help because people are afraid that it's going to cause some kind of nuclear situation. I kind of believe that I don't think Putin would use nukes. I just
Yeah.
don't think he would.
Yeah.
Um, I do think we should be helping Ukraine more. And I think
Hmm.
that I can't remember the quote, but I saw somebody on Twitter basically say, we can do it now or we can wait until there's more deaths and do it later. And that was the
Hmm.
gist of what they said. And so, yeah, I'm all for helping them because they are representative, I think, of the huge fight that's going on globally with white supremacy and democracy. And so I
Hmm.
think it would behoove all democracies to do everything they can to help Ukraine win. And I think Zelensky is unbelievable. He's amazing. I
Hmm.
love that man and the energy
Hmm.
that he puts to it. And then, of course, the Republicans are idiots the way that they're handling all of it, and I can't even comment
Yeah.
on them. But I would like to. I hope that there is some kind of. I know Russia is collapsing, has been trending on Twitter, and I haven't really followed too much on why that is, on why that's trending. But I certainly hope that's true, and I hope that this year we see some kind of resolve.
Yeah, we will. B, there's a lot of reasons why it's collapsing, not the least of which is that the sanctions that were put on last year, while they certainly bit in mid-year at the biggest, that most people are aware of. In January, December 31st was when the oil embargo, the price cap went into effect. And then February 5th is when the refined petroleum products cap went into effect. And exports on oil and gas dropped somewhere in the order of 60% over a 2-month period. That's why they're cutting their oil production, and it isn't affecting the oil price worldwide because that oil wasn't going anywhere to start with. That's one of the strangest things. Remember when some, like the Saudis, were going to drop their production by 500,000 barrels, and everybody was freaking out because it was going to affect the world price. And Russia announced 650,000 barrels, and nobody gives a rat's ass. It's because it's not available on the world market, so nobody cares. It doesn't affect the overall price. And China just had to make a deal with, I think it was Exxon and BP, to make up for the stuff that Russia isn't going to produce. It isn't going to hurt anybody in the West, and that's the weird part. Like, it's they're idiots. It's crazy, and it is madness. And we're gonna, Philip and I talk about this a lot, but nobody was prepared for 91 when they collapsed all of a sudden, when the USSR collapsed. We're heading towards another moment like that, and nobody knows when it's going to happen. No, and the rest of the world needs to be prepared, because it's going to be fucking scary. And by the way, they'll never use nukes, but the garbage nuke, warheads and what materials they do have left over, it could be a free for all, through Kazakhstan and other countries if it falls as badly and as quickly as it did in the USSR, but under Russia. That's the biggest concern. They're never going to launch a nuclear strike. And anybody who says they are is using mutual assured destruction as a way to support Russia. But other than that, I have no opinion. That said, when do new episodes of the Start Me Up pod launch regularly, and what's coming up?
I'm going to be talking with Earl. He goes by, what is it? Not Duke of Earl. I can't remember. Earl Stevens. He was the See, you're catching me today, and I can't remember anything.
I understand.
Stars. He was the editor of Stars and Stripes. He's going to be on. It's Tuesdays and Thursdays. This is my show.
There you go. And Tuesdays and Thursdays. There we go. Start with first principles. Tuesdays and Thursdays. What time, or is it just a generalized?
No time.
Whenever you get it up?
It's just a generalized whenever it goes up. And I'll be talking with Earl, but then also I'm just waiting on my guest on Thursday to confirm. Gotcha. So I'm not going to say the name yet.
Understood. Yeah. Okay. Great. So you'll be Duke.
Yeah. I always want to call him Duke of Earl, but I do want to say last week I interviewed Christopher Boozy and Plastic Martyr, and they were some great shows. So
yeah. Well, and for those of you who don't know, Boozy's behind Spoutable, and he's been doing great work. And Plastic Martyr is terrific. I follow Plastic Martyr on Twitter as well.
She's fantastic. She should come on. Yeah. She is really great. I love her.
I would love to have her on. So that's fantastic. Okay, we'll make that happen at some point, even if it's just so she can come on, so I can tell her I hope she has a great day. I think that would be a pleasant enough experience for me in general. So thanks for coming on. I really greatly appreciate it. Hopefully, as some of these issues come up, especially as we get further down the road in the choice fight that will be happening this year, I'd love to have you back on to discuss that as well. And then, and that's it. And you're fantastic. And everybody should follow you, author Kimberly, with the extra E, which I actually fixed. Yes. There it is. Yeah.
Extra E. And then you're going to have to come back on my show too.
I insist. And it's author Kimberly on Spoutable as well.
No, it's Kimberly Johnson on Spoutable.
Oh, you got your full name on there. Yeah, you didn't have to. Yeah, this, because I would say Kimberly Johnson, while a lovely name, is relatively in the American circle, a fairly reasonably common name in social media circles.
Yes.
So I don't doubt somebody jumped on it. So congratulations on being on the ground floor of a new social media and being able to have your own name. It feels good.
It does.
Yes. Anyways, you're awesome. Thanks so much for being here. Everybody follow Kimberly and check out her podcast Tuesdays and Thursdays, especially if you thought I talked too much during this, which is what I do.
Thank you, Hal.
True. Absolutely. Thanks for being with me. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah. And you're good. You're good. Yeah, there you go. Okay. There you go. All right. And thank you guys. Appreciate it. And don't give me too much shit for talking too much. A, it's who I am, and B, if she has her own podcast, she has plenty of time to listen to her speak on her thing as well. And we'll we managed to get through it, and I'm learning. I'm a fledgling, in terms of having guests on the show. I will work on it. Just don't get too mad. Ron Filipowski, that's a good idea because I was on his. That'd be fun. I talk more than I usually do. Really? That's not true on the morning show, certainly. Yeah, it's me. It's my show. That's true. Thank you. I'd love to have Noel on. That's fantastic. Yeah. Stephanie does the same thing. I know. I as a guest, maybe that's why. Maybe that's where I learned it. Yeah. Interviewer and interviewee. Yes. Well, here's the thing. You're kind of right because I feel like it should be a conversation. Oh yes, and she's in DC instead of overseas, so the delay was much tighter. It's way easier to have a conversation. So, I've got guests all week. Before too long, I'll be able to, I'll get this all thing down. I'll be sending them questions ahead of time. It's going to be fantastic. I will make it happen. Thank you guys. I will see you later this afternoon. Obviously, we're going to cover Trump's CPAC speech. We might even, if we get bored in the middle of it, jump over and do Russell Brand's little blurb from fucking Real Time, where effectively, and I want to say this as gently as I can, Bill Maher is afraid to have me on. Anyways, just saying. I was on Politically Incorrect. For some reason, scared to have me on now. That's just the way it is. But yeah, I'll reach out to Noel Kassler, see if he can come on. That would be fantastic. And yes, check out Start Me Up, Kimberly's her podcast, Tuesdays and Thursdays, fresh episodes. And she's got, like she said, she had the one with Plastic Martyr and with Charles Boozy. Twitter free API back on. Oh, nice. Thanks, Carl. So anyways, love you guys. You and Mar are too much alike. No, we are not. As a matter of fact, it's part of the reason, I think because I'm so anti-pot as far as using it, I'm pro-legalization, decriminalization, but I am against using it. That's one of the bigger digs. It's almost single-handedly why Rogan doesn't want me back on. They all got this fucking chip on their shoulder about it. If you'll bake with them before or after, you're in, or even on the air. But if you're like, nah, fuck that, they're like, ew. It's weird. It's the only culty thing about it. So, not to worry. He's just it's true. No, there's a whole backstory of why Bill is angry with me. Get a contact high standing next to Bill Maher. Yeah. Hey, yeah, I had already shook his hand when I found out that he apparently rubs one out before every show when I was on Politically Incorrect. I thought that was pretty funny. Yeah, they can be. Yeah, they can be touchy. It's true. So anyways, love you guys. I'll see you this afternoon. Got to go. Have fun. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And remember, if you're ever confronted with a choice that you believe is the lesser of two evils, choose less evil.